Hey there, everybody. It's time for that weekly video. And this week, I thought I'd talk a little bit about urban van life as far as finding spots and how I go about that. It is a question I get pretty often. Most of my overlanding friends and a lot of van lifer types actually spend most of their time out in natural areas, not in city cores, urban centers. They're usually out and about for days at a time. They zip back to a city after a week or two to get supplies and get out in the toolies again. And I have the exact opposite. I spend, I'd say 95% of my nights over the course of a year in urban areas. They're not your typical place where it's a piece of cake. Just say, hey, I'm on BLM land, I'll go find a spot to park. Doing the overland thing in natural areas, except for where there are trail restrictions and stuff, is super, super easy to find a spot to crash for a night. And quite a different story when you're traveling and spending the night in urban areas. From small cities to big cities, there's a lot more to think about than when you're overlanding and you just got to head down a trail. If a trail's open, you'll find a spot. Get level and you're done. That's not how it goes in the urban environment. So to begin with, there are a couple different kinds of van lifers, vehicle dwellers, however you want to put it. There are stealth looking vehicles and people, and there are non-stealth. I fall firmly in the non-stealth category. This vehicle has zero stealth. If I'm parked somewhere where people can see me, it gets attention. Very not stealthy with hella. But a lot of folks who do this, who are going to spend most of their time in urban cores, they prioritize stealth with their vehicle. And by stealth, I mean their vehicle doesn't attract attention. It doesn't look like anybody would be sleeping in it or living, out of that vehicle. For example, minivans and SUVs are super good stealth vehicles, as long as you don't plaster them with all kinds of like reflectics in the windows and stuff. As long as you make it look like it's just a car parked on the street for the night, and you use like really dark curtains that just looks like tinted glass, that sort of thing. Minivans are fantastic because, especially if it's a window kind of minivan, like a passenger minivan, people can just black out the windows with, blackout curtains, and nobody gives a second thought that somebody's sleeping in there, unless you're idiotic and you have the curtains up and you throw on all the lights and you're visible and you're coming and going and everything. Then people will clue in. But if not, if you're doing the SUV or the minivan deal, and you look like a regular car on the street, you got wicked good stealth. As long as you're smart about it. You park where you park after dark or near the end of the day, and you just go into bed in the back. You've got already prepped, and you've got your hangout space back there. Then yeah, super, super stealthy. And those kind of folks can park their vehicle overnight practically anywhere, because they just look like company visiting in the neighborhood. So that's pretty slick. I can't relate because I have zero stealth. Zero stealth category kind of starts with full-size vans. If it's a cargo van and it has a vent on the top, that's kind of kills your stealth. It's pretty known now, thanks to movies like Nomad Land and just the van life trend, that hey, if there's a white cargo van that I don't recognize parked in front of my place and it's got a roof vent, especially if the vent opens up, and it's open, yeah, people are going to clue in, and they may not like it, depending on, how your rig looks. If it looks really clean, real well maintained, as long as it's not got smoke coming out the roof. I have friends with wood stoves in their rigs, and this was back in Seattle, If they weren't careful where they parked, if they parked where people could see smoke coming out, even though it's got a little chimney, they call the fire department on them, like there's a vehicle fire. So I I get it with the wood stove thing. It's cute and everything, and it can be it can work. It's dry heat. That's a really good thing if you're in cold climates. But yeah, it doesn't work out too well in neighborhoods. So for those of us like myself who have zero stealth, which would be schoolies, old bread trucks like step vans and stuff like that, or liveaboard that's clearly stylized, has like graphics on the side, or it's a camper van, like a factory camper van, you got no stealth. So you have a lot more considerations to think about when you're choosing a spot for the night. And when you're traveling, I have found the best way to go with that is to head, for me it works, I've never had a problem with police moving me along when I do this when I'm traveling, is I'll head towards the pseudo-industrial end of town. I'll go to areas where clearly there's some kind of manufacturing, but it's not dangerous looking, and they have streets that are just about empty, after hours. And when I'm traveling, I'm usually crashing, by dark, and I can find a good, relatively level spot. I mean, all roads have a crown. If you're parked on the street, you're likely going to have a little tilt to the passenger side, and that's no problem. But I tend to find that industrial areas are usually a place where I can park for a night without any problem, and I don't attract attention. Not all little towns have that. Certainly where I'm at currently in San Francisco, there's not an industrial part of town that I'm willing to stay in because it's very different. There's a lot of kind of derelict and a lot of homeless liveaboards in those areas, and I'm never willing to park around those folks because bad shit's happening. There's a lot of crime, a lot of drugs, a lot of mental illness that I don't want to be any part of as far as where I'm sleeping. I don't want to be associated with that. So yeah, industrial parts of town are really good. When I'm in a city like San Francisco, I've found I look on the map and I look for any kind of city infrastructure, be it Parks and Rec department or some kind of infrastructure, maybe water treatment, what have you, that occupies part of a neighborhood that's a decent part of town. And even if there's houses across the street from me, I can park on the infrastructure side of the street and not make people nervous. I never, ever, ever, it's a hard and fast rule for me, I will not park on the street right in front of people's houses. I think that when liveaboards do that don't have an association with people who live on that street or in those houses, I think you're asking for trouble, and I think it's actually kind of rude. I think it's incumbent upon us, if we're going to be considerate, if we want to be good neighbors and we don't want to cause people any concern, is to give them at least the across the street distance. Don't park up your schoolie right in front of someone's house. It's like asking for trouble. You're going to make them nervous. And that parking spot, especially if you're in an urban core like San Francisco, they may not be there right now because they're at work or what have you, but chances are they park right in front of their house. They have a car, they park there, and when you take up that spot, you're extra asking for them to really pay attention to what's going on. And I know plenty of people get the cops called on them when they do that. So I think you should be really courteous, and if you're urban parking in neighborhoods, park along some kind of infrastructure. I'm sure you can figure out what I'm talking about, that doesn't have homes on that side of the street. And generally, I've had no problem with that. And like I say, I've got no stealth. I'm the opposite of it. I've got my website on the side, which I think has helped me on a few occasions, because people can look it up and see, oh, what's this guy, what's this truck over there? And they read about what I'm doing. And I've had people actually come out and talk to me because of that. So I have a really unique situation that way. But even if I didn't have a website on the side, I think that makes the difference when you aren't parked right on the house side of the street and you give them a little buffer zone. It's also really, really important to not overstay your welcome. I never, well, I won't say never, it's very rare that I stay parked all day into a second night on the street anywhere. Usually that only happens if I'm broke down. So primarily, I leave every day. So I'm only there for the night. I cause no trouble. I never put anything outside my vehicle on the ground, nothing like that. And generally, you don't have a problem. If you stay for days and days and days, it's going to become a problem. You will attract attention. And most cities, like in San Francisco, it's technically illegal to be sleeping in your vehicle on the street. But if you don't cause a problem, you generally won't have a problem. You know, they're not going to commit resources to that, to a vehicle that isn't derelict, that obviously comes and goes and moves around. There's a 72-hour rule for parking on the street anyway. So, and they have street sweeping every couple weeks on all the streets. So if you keep moving every day and you're thoughtful, and the other thing is, don't stay in the same place night after night after night. Now, I learned this lesson the hard way, because I did have a spot I loved in San Francisco for the last 3 winters. And that was just where I went for the night, period. And, you know, this is a new rule for me, mixing up spots. Well, my son also was using that spot, and that's where he got robbed. And I think it's because we were so predictable. You know, somebody figured it out. So now I rotate spots around. I've got 4 different spots I use in San Francisco, and I'm always looking for new ones, and I mix it up. I'm not in certain spots at certain days. You can't predict when and where I'll come along. And I don't park for the night and then leave my rig. So there's that too. So we've instituted those kind of policies, and I think that's gone a long way towards our security, and also being welcome in the neighborhoods where we do park. And I'd also like to talk about something. Pretty much anybody who does this now, whether they do it full-time or just travel in their van or vehicle, you all have heard of iOverlander. It's an app that helps you find spots that are good to spend the night, you know, be it out in the wild, you know, public lands or urban areas. And it was a great idea when it started. I know lots of people who still use it, but boy, I don't anymore, because I've found on the few occasions I've used it, I go to those iOverlander spots and there's new signs that it's closed, or they're kind of trashed. And I've picked up other people's trash and stuff before, because I'm like, hey, this is not how we're supposed to leave it. But there seem to be some folks that really abuse the iOverlander spots, suggested spots, and that's sad. So, like, I've never posted a spot on iOverlander, and I never will, because they tend to get trashed. It's just a reality. I've talked to a lot of overlanders and van lifers about it. We've all had the same experience, and most of us don't even use it anymore. On rare occasion we'll look, but generally we use our own radar. We look on Google Earth and look at look for that infrastructure in a town or a city we're going to be in, and go from there and read the signs, read the street signs, do a little research about the town's codes in terms of parking, etc. And, you know, just Google whatever town you're going into, and van life, you know, street parking, you know, that sort of thing, and you'll get the information you need. And once you start doing it, it's not hard to figure out good spots, you know. And of course, when you're traveling, there's always just the safe thing of going to rest stops. Most truck stops, though, that's kind of changing a little bit, I hear, with truck stops. But, you know, if you're at a truck stop, you don't park where the big rigs are, obviously. That'll get people unhappy with you. But usually you can park for 8 hours, crash for a night at a truck stop, certainly at rest stops. So anyway, not a big fan of apps that give you locations or location sharing, because those tend to get totally abused. And then you're not welcome there. And, you know, it just seems like a waste. It's not hard to find spots if you're being thoughtful, considerate of, you know, neighborhoods, and aware of your level of stealth. Like I said, if you got a stealthy rig, you can park anywhere for the night if you're smart about it. And but if you don't have stealth, you have to do a little more thinking, and you have to plan accordingly. And it's doable. You know, I've talked to people who are interested in doing this, who aren't always going to want to be off-grid out in the wild, and they're kind of freaked out about, well, how do I find a spot? And I've had this discussion. So that's why I'm making this video. Because, like I said, I spend 95% of my nights in cities, in urban cores. And I really love it. I enjoy being in different neighborhoods, seeing different parts of towns, grabbing their transit system and running around town. And yeah, so it's not as hard as people seem to think. And the folks you see who have derelict vehicles, who are truly homeless, and they're just sheltering in a car or a van or a truck that doesn't barely function, you know, that's a totally different deal. It's not the same as if you've got a functional rig and you've chosen this lifestyle for whatever reason, but you've chosen it. You know, that's a different deal. And so there's lots of different shades of it to it, but you won't have any problem being considered a threat, etc. If you're courteous, considerate, keep the, you know, stereo down once you park for the night, and don't make a show of yourself. Don't like throw anything out the windows. Don't go doing anything outside your rig, and generally you won't make people who will be cool with it. If they aren't, every time I've gotten the knock 7 times in the nearly 6 years I've been out here doing this full time, and with the exception of one time, every time I got the knock, I knew it was a high likelihood I would. But every time, the police have been cool. And I know I'm at the top end of the privileged food chain. I'm an older white male with a vintage military rig, and a lot of police are ex-military, and they love this truck. I know I get very preferential treatment, but I've talked to other van lifers who've had similar experience. If you get the knock and it's always very jarring and not fun, you come to the cab, they're at the window. If you're cool with them, they are cool with you. They don't even ask for your ID unless they run your plate and you've got a warrant or some idiotic thing, or your license is suspended. So if you're all legit, you know, they've already run your plate, they know who you are, they've seen your ID on the computer. You come to the door, you look like that person, all they're going to do is say, hey man, I'm sorry, you can't park here for the night. They're like, oh, I'm sorry, officer. And, you know, you have a suggestion where I could go? And they always have had a suggestion for me. And I go to that spot for the night and then figure out, you know, if I'm traveling, I'm heading on down the road the next day, or I figure out a new spot, you know. So basically, if you're all legit, licensed, up to date, considerate of the neighborhood, and don't park right in front of people's places, be a good neighbor, you usually won't have much of a problem. That's been my experience. So anyway, I just want to talk about that. So there you go. Those are my few tips and tricks. And I don't know what else to say about it, except if you have questions, ask in the comments, and I will respond. One other little thing I just thought of to add to this is that if you do park in a spot in a neighborhood like I'm describing, and you see any kind of anxious peeping through windows, people pointing, looking, standing in the window looking at your vehicle and talking on the phone, these are cues that maybe you should try a different spot. I would encourage you to try a different spot. Now, I do go for nice neighborhoods. That's something I didn't mention. I don't park in multi-million-dollar, like, gated communities. That would be dumb as hell. I'm going to get moved. But I don't park in the low end, too. I go to pretty much the, you know, middle zone real estate-wise. So that there's people who are taking good care of their homes, who are, you know, doing all right. It's basically middle-class neighborhoods. I've found those are the best, because those folks generally aren't too concerned with you. It tends to be that people with the most expensive stuff, homes, cars, whatever, they are the most anxious because they got all this nice shit. They feel threatened, you know, by anything unusual happening outside. So I don't even bother with the big money neighborhoods. And conversely, if you go to the rough part of town, then who knows what people might want to approach your vehicle for, or might harass it, or might even take something off of it if it has external things, like fuel tanks or traction boards or what have you. So definitely go for the middle zone, the middle. Why am I forgetting? Good grief. I think you get what I'm saying. God, sometimes the old brain is feeling pretty old. Yeah. Yeah, stick with the middle zone. That's the best place to go if you're in neighborhoods. So I hope this has been helpful, interesting, either one. It's a unique challenge to do the urban van life thing when you don't have a stealth vehicle. And so I just thought I'd talk about it because it's part of my daily life and people do ask me about it. So there you go. Hope you have a great weekend, and I'll catch you next week.